delightful, and oh so soothing. It's Sacramento Smooth Jazz.
Welcome back to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. Brace yourselves, everyone, because we're in for an amazing ride through the world of smooth jazz, of course, and I'm proud to present a true luminary. And I'm going to say, prepare to have your senses serenaded, your soul stirred, and your day transformed. What am I talking about? Well, we're going to dive into the sensational soundscape of none other than saxophonist Phil Denny. Now, he has a trail of 11 Billboard chart busters and a recent 2022 #1 hit. Phil Denny's name is synonymous with musical excellence. From the international jazz festivals to groundbreaking collaborations, his journey is a sonic adventure like no other. So get ready to elevate your day with the rhythms and insights of the one and only Phil Denny. Phil, how are you, man? And welcome to the show.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate that grand introduction.
I know, man.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Hey, you are more than deserving of it. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I am thrilled. I've been looking forward to this day, actually, because I'm a fan of your music. And I know it's a little unusual for a host or someone interviewing an artist to say I'm a fan, but I'm a fan, truly. I'm just going to be direct and transparent with you. I listen to your music, but let's do something here because I got a lot of questions in a short bit of time. Let's take it back. Let the people know why the saxophone. How did you begin with the saxophone in the first place?
Yeah, well, I started off playing in the 6th grade band, and it was an elective at the time, something that I did and really hadn't chosen to do right out of the gate because I was always so active with sports growing up as a kid. But my middle school band director handed me the saxophone and literally said, "Phil, you look like a sax player." I think at the time I wanted to play the trumpet, but that probably had something to do with my size at the time, when I was 12 years old. But, she handed me the alto saxophone. I think she saw something in me. And, all these years later, I have to thank her. She was right.
It's pretty amazing how someone chose it for you, and there are other great musicians who someone else chose it for them. And here we are years later. So, but tell us, what has been that transition like for you? Has it been a transition with respect to just, was there other instruments involved, or did you just say, hey, I'm going to stick with this and turn it into a career? Talk to us about that compared to, where you started to where you are right now.
Music has always been a part of my life. And I'd like to also give a shout out to my brother who worked at a record store back in the day here in Lansing, Michigan called Warehouse Records. And he would bring home demo CDs of the likes of Grover Washington Jr., Dave Koz, Boney James, Kirk Whalum, Richard Elliott, so many contemporary artists. And that's really when I identified a sound on the saxophone that was quite pleasing to me. I grew up inner city. I listened to a lot of variety of music. And just that contemporary sound, the urban R&B sound is something that resonated with me. And I found myself in the basement just practicing along to these records, emulating these sounds and, trying to develop a style and sound of my own. And then I was awarded a scholarship to go to Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp the summer before my freshman year of high school. And that's when I really started to learn, what is jazz? What is the purpose of jazz? What is the discussion that we're having when we're improvising, all of these different languages? And that really opened up my ears and wanted me to dive into, this idiom of jazz and really learn its history. And I thought that I knew something, but that summer really taught me a lot about jazz music. And then, from there forward, I was really hooked on the sound.
Going back to, you said Warehouse Records and Tapes, and if anybody who truly loves music, we know about Warehouse Records and Tapes from back in the day. A lot of us definitely went there to get our music, no doubt. But you had some great influences overall, So let me ask you this. Can you share a moment that has shaped your musical evolution from your debut back in 2012 to the most recent Billboard hit?
Oh, gosh, I've had so many memorable experiences. Before I started my solo career in about 2011, I had a band around town, and we were called Too Smooth for Notes.
Too Smooth for Notes?
Too Smooth for Notes. Yes, sir.
Come on. I love it.
Yeah. And that was really just kind of a play on words, because we were so unscripted, we weren't reading music on paper. So we were very heavily based into improvisation and just a free-flowing platform. And that was really the foundation of my artistry. I had the opportunity years ago to just be enamored by Stevie Wonder. He graced our stage on a Thursday night. I had the opportunity to play side by side with Kirk Whalum, Richard Elliott, Rick Braun. I've done some side work with Peter White. I've traveled to Nairobi, Kenya. All of these experiences I've really embraced and have just taken in. And I like to say that those have all attributed to not only my musical progress, but also it translates into my personal life as well.
Now, having those collaborations, hearing all those different influences, of course, it definitely shapes the way, I'm sure you write music, play music. Is there a particular legend that you've collaborated with or been on the stage with that made you go, well, you kind of like in awe? When you're on stage, you're like, I'm here. I don't want to mess this note up. Has that ever happened?
I did play Grover Worked and Underpaid once with Kirk Whalum, and it was a unique experience because his wireless microphone at that particular show had failed, and I was in the audience just as a spectator, and I knew the promoter, so I went to my car and got my wireless microphone, and I offered that, of course, to Kirk Whalum so he could finish his show. But he said, "Man, come on stage on this next tune. Grover Worked and Underpaid?" I said, "Yes, I do." So I went out there, and I was nervous because I was still, pretty new into my solo career. This goes back maybe to 2014 or so. And that was definitely a moment where I was like, okay, Phil, you got to take all of what you learned and really, try to shine next to one of your musical heroes.
Wow.
So that's one that really stands out. But, like I said, I've met a lot of my mentors and peers along the way. And, sometimes, you're side by side or you're stage side and you're just really, thankful for the opportunities. And, Boney James certainly is one of my saxophone heroes that I've listened to a lot over the years. And I've met Boney several times, and I'm good friends with Mike Hart, who is currently on tour with Boney. And I'm able to sit stage side and take photos and just kind of watch and observe and, take it all in. And I can't help but just sit back and think of, how fortunate I am, but sometimes just, how lucky I am to be in the position that I am today.
If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking with saxophonist Phil Denny today, a true luminary, an amazing artist in his own right, and he's doing some fantastic things and saw fit to give us some time today. Now, Phil, I want to go back to where you were just trying to help out. You saw someone in need and you said, hey, I have to help. I have the ability to help. I'm going to my car and get a wireless mic. And you were not looking to do anything but to help. But in that process of helping, you're getting called up on stage. I can't begin to tell you how nervous the average person would have felt. I'm sure you've probably felt a certain kind of way. But what I want to do is also talk to you about collaboration when it comes to that, when you're bringing a feature artist onto a specific track. What's your process like when it comes to working with any artist on your tracks?
Sure. Yeah. The collaborations that I've had, I've really put a lot of thought into it, and a lot of the features are really stem from friendships that I've developed, with Adam Hawley, David P. Stevens, Ryan Montano, and so many others. And it's getting to know the artist, getting to know their musical, their motives, what is their inspiration. And, when we have the opportunity to sit down and talk about our musical vision and goals, it's just nice to have a genuine conversation and be sort of on the same page musically. So when I do write and I think of a collaboration, I really want to write with that particular person in honor. And I did that, for example, with the track Feel Alright that featured David P. Stevens that fared very well on Billboard for us. Ryan Montano, I heard his trumpet. I wrote the track for David as though he was in the room with me, and stylistically how he would play, because I can hear his voice on that instrument. And that for me has been a fun process. I've worked with great producers and, co-produced on a lot of tracks over the years since, like I said, since the Crossover Project in 2012. And, the fun thing for me is really pushing myself into a different dimension of songwriting. And that's part of the reason why I hooked up with Adam Hawley, Greg Manning, Mike Hart on guitar, with Buddy Bangs, with Rhythm Section Entertainment, just to, make sure that the music that I'm producing doesn't become stale, stays current, is fresh. And, for me, is hip. I want to make sure, again, you mentioned that the song sounds like a Phil Denny track, but you also want to pay respect to the producers that you're working with as well.
Nice. Now, with multiple hit singles with Urban Troubadour, I'm curious about your message. How do you craft a cohesive yet unique set of tracks that tell a story? Or are you just you're just throwing out tracks out there, because I know some people just putting the music out there, while some are trying to tell a story between the entire project.
I guess that depends. Songwriting for me kind of falls into seasons. You know, I live in Lansing, Michigan, and we have a legit 4 seasons. And I feel that because I'm so active with touring or producing my own festivals and events, that really when things start to calm down, the temperatures get cold, the skies are gray, I can really become a little bit reclusive in my studio and really focus my thoughts and put all of my energy into songwriting, to where I'm not getting pulled or distracted into different directions. So that's sort of my songwriting season. And, you know, for me, I'm really kind of, a production-based artist. If I hear it, I like it. If I feel it, if I can make it my own, that's really when I call on a particular producer for a specific track. There is generally a goal or a vision or direction. And that's the case. You mentioned Urban Troubadour. So I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into my R&B roots. So I, specifically met up with Mike Hart Jr. and a few other people to really craft that organic, sound that I was looking to achieve at that moment in time.
When I hear you play, I said to myself when I first heard you some time ago, I said, this guy has some soul. It's in him. And so when you said your R&B roots, I'm not surprised, Phil, because I can hear it. In fact, most people, when they hear an artist, we can tell, and you know this more than I do, we can tell if it's in them.
For sure.
Or they're just playing notes.
For sure.
But you feel what you're playing.
Yes, sir.
And it conveys in the music that you're sharing with us. Getting to what you indicated about what you're doing there in the festival, you just had one, right? And you do this every year. You're busy with just that alone. And I know the level that you do it, it's huge. Ladies and gentlemen, it's huge what he does. If I'm not mistaken, Phil, Lansing is a college town, right?
It is. Yeah, we're home to Michigan State University. So we have a revolving door of great talent. Of course, the School of Music is, it's top tier when it comes to jazz studies, performances, classical music, and so forth. The Phil Denny's Armory Smooth Jazz Fete, we do it at a repurposed armory property that once served for the Michigan National Guard. And, this year we welcomed just over 600 people. So it was our largest attended crowd to date. And it's interesting because this would have been the 7th annual, but it was our 5th annual because last year we got rained out. And then in 2020 and 2021, things were, obviously shut down and a little dicey coming out of COVID. So I think people were ready after a 3-year hiatus to come out and show some love and support. We featured Adam Hawley, Kyle Schroeder, Tom Brown did a pop by, which was really awesome. Gino Rosario was there, Hank Bilal on trombone, and a great vocalist by the name of Bobby Storm, who's got some really exciting things coming out in not only the R&B circuit, but also crossing over into the gospel circuit as well. So yeah, keeping busy. And then I also do my annual Christmas show, the Phil Denny and Friends Christmas Collective, every first Saturday in December right here in my hometown in Lansing.
Between writing and touring and producing and doing your own festivals, I want to let you know I'm really grateful that you've been able to carve out some time in your busy schedule to hang out with us today. And speaking of busy, tomorrow you're going to be performing right there in Stockton, which is 30 minutes south of us here in Sacramento. And it's a big jazz concert going out there on the waterfront. And it's been a big buzz going about. Let our listeners know what they can expect from you tomorrow, because I know you're just one of many people that's going to be there. But man, you're going to turn some things out. I know it.
Yeah, so, it's a great lineup. I mentioned Tom Brown. He's going to be at the festival. I mentioned Adam Hawley. He'll be there. Paul Taylor will be there. Jasmine Gent. Alexander O'Neill is on the ticket as well. So I think, for the people that are unsure, you can definitely look forward to experiencing a dynamic afternoon and evening of a wide variety of music, from jazz, contemporary jazz, R&B, soul, the old R&B rhythms, and maybe even some blues. So for me particularly, I had to pick, a time slot because there's so many artists. I think it's just important to let people know that it's dynamic, it's an escape, it's engaging. We want you to feel, come, be entertained, take away your weekend or your week woes or whatever's going on in your life and just settle in for an afternoon and evening of great music.
Nice. That's exactly how it should be. I really appreciate that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the track Digging On.
Digging On, yeah.
Now, I'm digging it, of course. I couldn't resist that.
All right,
but
yeah.
One thing, like you and many other artists and those on radio, we have a tendency to listen to a lot of music, more than the average person. And when I'm listening to that track, I break it down, listen to the arrangement. I'm listening to it over and over again, different sections. And I feel that there's some emotion behind it. I want to know the story behind it. I begin to have questions of myself as to what was the emotion behind it. Can you share what was the emotion behind it? What's the story behind that track?
There is, because when I recorded that on the Upswing project, I was sort of, teetering with, how am I really representing my music? How am I representing my voice? And I had this desire to really kind of tap into a little bit more of my R&B roots. Some of my earlier stuff is a little bit more pop heavy. And I wanted to just remind myself, like, stay true to your roots, tell a story. And Digging On was the prime example of really digging into, what message I wanted to have the listener feel and hear in my music. And that really set the stage for me going forward with my music. I hooked up with a couple people that I know here in Detroit, and it was one of those songs, because when I considered promoting it to radio, my radio promoter was a little unsure because of the R&B style in which it is. The R&B style that might not be favorable to radio, to terrestrial radio, to XM radio. And surprisingly enough, it fared very well, and we were really happy with it. So it was one of those risk versus reward things. I said, hey, let's give it a shot. It was the last single on my album that I chose to release. And still to this day, I tell people it's the song that almost made me famous. It remains an iTunes and Spotify favorite, and it's been a great track for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, you'll find Digging On the Upswing album. And on that album, you got some great ones on there. You got Julian Vaughn, Ollie Silk, just to name a few. So got to get that album, folks, and check it out on all streaming devices. Listen, Phil, I am really grateful that you spent some time with me. But what I want to do is let's get the people an opportunity to know how they can reach you online. They want to connect with you on social media. How can they do that?
Yeah, and that's something that I really take a lot of pride in. I enjoy the friend, fan, artist connections. So please reach out. I'm on Facebook at Phil Denny. I'm on Instagram at Phil on Sax. Those are probably the two best platforms. I tend to spend a lot of time on Instagram. I'm content heavy there, but Facebook for sure under Phil Denny. And, you can always check out my website and drop me a note as well at phildenny.com. I respond to everything personally, and I really look forward to those chats.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A way to connect with him on social media. He's there for you, but you can also connect with him tomorrow. Jazz on the Water Festival there in Stockton. Just go to eventbrite.com and you'll see the event right there. Phil Denny with Jasmine Gent, Adam Hawley, Paul Taylor, Tom Brown, and many others. And it's happening tomorrow. So I am thrilled. Let's do this. Phil, take us out on any selection of your projects, any song from one of your projects. Take us out. Which one would you want the listeners to hear tonight?
I think I'm going to take you guys back to my first Billboard #1. It was an amazing experience to record. It was the first record that I really introduced more live instrumentation, drums, for example, and it features an all-star cast of musicians. It was a great experience. I'm super proud of the track. A lot of my musician friends tell me it's one of their favorites to play. So let's give them Switch Up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from Phil Denny himself. He wants you to hear Switch Up from his Align project going back to 2018. Here it is with Switch Up right here on Sacramento Smooth Jazz. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate your time today, man.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. To continue listening to Smooth Jazz 24/7, follow Sax Smooth Jazz on social media and listen by going to saxsmoothjazz.fm.